All right, welcome everyone. This is Health and Safety Benefits of Today's High Performance Windows, presented by IKON Windows and hosted by Acelab. My name is Bo. I'm going to give folks a few minutes to trickle in and go over some housekeeping items, and then we'll get started with today's AIA-approved presentation. Okay, so first things first, this is hosted by Acelab. We're free, non-sponsored product research. I'm going to keep our Acelab demo pretty quick so we can get to our presentation, but just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of our team. So we are 4 architects by architects with the goal to really improve this workflow of finding product data, connecting with product reps, and being able to store and organize your product information. So I'll real quick just show you where to find today's speakers on Acelab. So once you sign in, anytime you know exactly what you're looking for, just head over to the search bar on the top. You can type in IKON Windows and head over to their page on Acelab. So you can connect with Adrian directly through this page just by clicking on Contact. It'll give you the option to nest this under a project or add a new project and select exactly the information that you're looking for. So that's a great way to get in touch with Adrian. You can do that during the event. We'll also be polling you at the end of the event to make sure that if you need any follow-up information, we will be getting that to you. All right. And while I'm here, so I know we did not yet ask for your AIA information. So we are going to ask you to sign in with us and provide your AIA information on this form. I'm going to send the link to the form in the chat now. So please feel free to do that as soon as you can throughout the event. I'll also send that link at the end just for anyone who maybe missed it or joined a few moments late. So you'll be able to sign up at the end there. Okay. And other than that, I believe that's all of my housekeeping things. So please keep an eye in the chat for that form to add your AIA number. If you don't have an AIA number, you can just skip that field. The other thing I would like to mention is we'll be reserving some time for questions at the end of today's event. So please feel free to submit questions to us in the chat during the event. We will try to, get to those as soon as we can if they're relevant during the presentation, but mostly we'll save some time to discuss those at the end of today's event. And if your question does not get answered, if we go a bit over time, then we will have a record of all of your questions so we can follow up with you about that as well. Okay. Looks like we've got quite a few folks joining already. So I will go ahead and hand this over to Adrian. Adrian, welcome. We're really excited to have you here for this today on health and safety benefits of today's high performance windows. And yeah, feel free to give yourself a little intro and take it away with our presentation for the day.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adrian Dymarczyk. I'm the owner of IKON Windows. And today we'll be talking about the benefits of high performance windows in general. So let's get started. Let me just share my screen. If I can, is my screen already up?
Not yet. Oh, I might need to give you permission. There you go. Try again.
Awesome. Here we go. Okay, so today we'll be talking about the benefits, health, and safety of high performance windows. Some of the things that we'll be covering today are how these windows are designed to keep the warmth inside during the winter and the cold inside during the summer. They are thermally broken, well insulated, and airtight units, and with the glass chosen properly for the region that you'll be installing them. They typically have multi-locking points around the sash to ensure proper gasket compression, and they are made without compromising your view, light, or aesthetics. So high performance windows do come in various materials. This would be your standard vinyl, fiberglass, wood, aluminum, composite, vinyl cladding, aluminum clad, and aluminum clad vinyl. Today we're going to be talking mainly about UPVC, wood clad aluminum, as well as steel. All of these have different attributes. UPVC windows are typically our low maintenance building material. They're the best bang for your buck and will achieve pretty much the highest performance to a price ratio. Aluminum is more aesthetic. It is a anti-corrosion resistant material that can also achieve very high performance values with the correct thermal breaks. Wood is sustainable, renewable, and in general, it's a higher performance material in itself, just because of the way that wood is naturally insulative. And steel, of course, is mainly an aesthetic option, typically made from galvanized steel as well as stainless steel. Thermal breaks are used in steel windows to increase the thermal performance. So with UPVC, what we have, UPVC windows, if we're looking for high performance UPVC windows of any kind, what we're going to be looking for is a multi-chamber design. So the increased number of chambers will increase the performance of a window. If you look to the left side, our IKON Optima Plus window, you'll see the number of chambers compared to, let's say, a typical Marvin window. So the increase in chambers will increase the performance of the window. They can also be filled with different thermal solutions, such as a foam or aerogel inserts, to further increase the performance of that frame. So with most windows, the frame is usually the weakest part. So as long as we can increase the performance of that frame, we'll be increasing the performance of the overall window. Aluminum windows have a polyimide thermal break between the interior and exterior extrusions. This is usually made from a non-conductive piece, and the wider the thermal break, the higher performing the window will be. It also takes a note from our UPVC windows because they can also be made from various chambers that will also increase the performance of the window. So when looking at aluminum windows, what we're going to be wanting to look at is the length of the thermal break that joins the interior and exterior, and of course any type of additional chambers that is in the thermal break or the aluminum extrusion will also increase the thermal performance of that frame. Now, what is it's naturally a good material for thermal insulation. We don't really need to do much in increasing the performance of wooden windows. What we like to do if you're looking for the lowest possible U value is you're going to be looking for the width of window frame. So typically the wider the wood or the deeper the wood is, the lower the U value will be. On cladded units, you can also look at insulated foam that is inserted between the cladded material as well as the wooden material to increase the thermal performance. Now, steel is mainly an aesthetic choice. So if we're looking for passive house U values, probably not going to achieve that with steel, but we can still get below Energy Star. We can still see U values at the 0.2 range, but this will solely depend on the type of thermal breaks that we'll use in steel. So same concept applies as the aluminum windows. The wider the thermal break, the higher performing the frame will be. So a little bit more about thermal breaks. Thermal breaks refer to the design feature that helps reduce the transfer of heat from the interior and exterior of a building through the window frames. So depending on the frame you choose, you will need to think about the best type of thermal break for your climate zone. So if we're in a colder climate, we want to see those thermal breaks much wider, versus if you're in a warmer climate, you may not need to go crazy and your thermal break may not have to be as wide. If you look on the right side, there's an aluminum lineup. So going from left to right, you can see that the thermal breaks are starting to increase in size. They are increasing in number of chambers as well as the gaskets. So you'll see the lowest performing aluminum window to a high performing aluminum window. So depending on the region, depending on how low you need the U value to go, your high performance windows should look more like on the right side for colder regions. On the left, you'll see the steel windows. They typically have a flat thermal break. And again, the wider the thermal break, the higher the performance. So one key thing to remember is high performance windows may vary depending on your climate zone. This map here shows our climate zones. As many of you are aware of the climate zone that you're in, we're probably going to be shooting for U values and SHGC values for your climate zone. So bear in mind that high performance windows in your climate, let's say if you're in Florida, will not be the same as a high performance window in New York or Maine. Another key feature of high performance windows is a well insulated glass unit. So insulated glass units are typically double, triple, or quad pane glass units that we put inside the windows and the doors, of course. And typically there's a gas. What we look for is at least an argon gas to be filled in between each chamber. Argon is the most common and improves the U value because it does not conduct heat as well as air. We can also use krypton if needed. However, krypton is a little bit more expensive, but it does insulate better than argon. What we've seen, it's sometimes better to go with a triple pane window and argon gas than, let's say, go with a double pane window and krypton. You'll get a better price for the triple pane, and the gas, well, in my opinion, the krypton gas is sometimes not worth the extra cost for the performance gain that you will have. Around the IGU, there's a spacer bar. High performance windows, high performance IGUs will use a warm spacer versus a traditional spacer. Traditional spacers are typically made out of aluminum or steel and they're empty, whereas a warm spacer will be made of some type of composite plastic and usually filled with desiccant. So what this spacer bar does, it further reduces the heat transfer at the bond edge, which translates into energy savings and warmth of the overall window. If you look at the bottom left, you'll see one window with the blue crosses in the middle. That's a cold, what you would see with a cold spacer or a steel spacer, versus to your right where you do see a warmer spacer. You don't have as much heat going through that portion of the glass. With aluminum and steel spacers, due to the metal high conductivity, heat can escape to the outside more easily. So this just shows you what would be looking at with a traditional spacer versus a warm spacer. The warm spacer, thanks to the high performance, they minimize the cold bridge between the inside and the outside. So going back a little bit, I've already mentioned U value and SHGC just a little bit in the previous slides. But to determine how well our windows perform, we will be looking at the U value, the SHGC, and the air tightness. So the U value is the heat flow of the window, how much heat is actually escaping. It's the reciprocal of the R value. So typically, the lower the U value, the higher the window will perform. And in reverse, the higher the R value, the better the window will perform. We can see that with a thermal camera. So on the bottom left, that's one of our projects here in Brooklyn. It's in a landmark district. And the purple windows are our windows where you see that the heat from the inside of the home is not escaping. So the outside of the windows is the same temperature as the wall, versus the right side where you see the windows and the doors are a little bit orange and yellow. What that means is that the U value is most likely higher than it should be for our area, and that heat from the inside of the house is escaping to the outside. Now, SHGC is how much solar radiation is getting transmitted through your windows and doors, pretty much through any glass portion of your house. The SHGC should be chosen depending on your climate zone. When we look at warmer climate zones, and if you're getting direct sun hitting your window, we should be looking for that lower SHGC value, keeping more of it out of the house, versus in colder climate zones where we have more room to play with the SHGC. Many high performance windows will use some type of multi-locking point system. In tilt and turn windows, we'll have a mushroom cap that goes all the way around the sash. They are usually harder to break into, so safer for you and your family. And they have the option of tilting, which is great for ventilation. The multi-locking points go all the way around the window. Depending on the size of the window, this can vary from 4 to 12 catches. The added points do not only increase safety of the window, but they also increase the air tightness. When you do lock that sash into place, it compresses all the gaskets on your frame. The sash gets sucked into the frame. So depending if you have 2, 3, or 4 gaskets, you'll have a better compression of those gaskets by using some type of multi-locking point system. Now, why is that important? It's important because most of the time gaps around the window are the major source of air leakage in a home. If we have a leaky window, if the window is not airtight, then even having that low U value on the window, pretty much, well, we throw it out the window because the window can be warm, but if air is still getting in around the sash, then having a low U value pretty much doesn't do anything. Having the airtight window is also a big factor in protecting the living space from pollution, dust, and odor. Living in a big city, we want to keep all of those things outside of our home instead of inside. So with an airtight window and a good air filtration system in your home, you can ensure that you're going to keep all the odor, pollutants, and dust out. High performance windows, depending on where you live, can also help with the acoustic performance. So when we're looking at triple pane windows, quad pane windows, these types of windows naturally have a higher OITC level. Depending on the window frame, the glass makeup, an OITC on a standard triple pane glass can exceed an OITC of 30. Now, if we start to laminate glass, we can go higher with the OITC, depending on where you live in the US. I'm going to take my current location, New York City. We want to have all that outside sound stay outside. We want to create a healthy, acoustically healthy environment inside our homes. And the way we do that is, of course, the triple pane glass or increasing the panes to a laminate pane on the outside. Now, another health aspect or comfort aspect, I like to say, one of the biggest benefits of high performance windows is, of course, the comfort. So with a warmer window, if we keep that heat in, it's more or less likely to, you're more or less likely to experience convection currents. A colder window will typically cool down the air that we have inside our home. So you may feel like you have a draft, but what you're experiencing is a convection current. And by following the guidelines listed above, you'll experience better comfort from your windows. So again, what we're looking for is appropriate U values for your climate zone. In colder climates, we're looking for lower U values, wider thermal breaks, triple pane glass. In warmer climates, we may be looking for lower SHGC. U value does still play a role in hotter climates because if you could imagine heat on the outside coming in, you also want to have a relatively low U value. You don't have to go as crazy as in the northern climates, but you have some more leeway with the south portion of the US. Thank you for listening.
Unmute. All right, so we've definitely got some time for some questions. So I see we've got one so far in here. Can the slides be shared? That's a good question for Adrian.
Yes, I can send the slides over to anybody that wants them. Just shoot over your email address and I'll send them over to you.
Great. Okay. And then Shannon, it looks like you have a question for me, but I'm only seeing bow/comma. So feel free to include a little bit more info there. And then I also wanted to mention that since I feel like people are often a little hesitant to do this, but we definitely have time for people who want to ask questions out loud. I find that often can be helpful if you've got like project specific questions or things that seem a little difficult to, type out in the chat. So feel free to raise your hand and I'll keep my eyes peeled for anyone who would like to talk. Let's see, we've got a question from Jacob. How long does the argon gas typically last in the IGU?
That is a good question. So I've discussed this with various IGU manufacturers. Everybody says something else because they think their product's the best. However, what we've seen typically that in the first 7 years of the IGU production, we're losing anywhere from 1% to 3% of that gas. So at the end of the 7 years, most likely we're already losing about 21% of that gas. And that's another reason that I don't recommend going with Krypton, because if we're losing that gas anyway, it's not really worth the extra money for the amount of performance that you get.
Makes sense. Okay, great. And I'll put another request. Any other questions from the audience? Or Shannon, if you had more information on your question, I'd be happy to answer. Oh, I also should mention, I'll do this now. I'm going to release the poll to connect with Adrian for follow-up information. So I'll launch this now, and feel free to let us know what type of information you would like, and we will get that to you. A conversation will be created with Adrian on your Acelab account so that he can coordinate getting you the right information. You can also let us know if this is for an active project, and then there will be a survey just quickly as an end screen at the end of this event where you can enter your project name just for our records. So yeah, feel free to indicate if this is for an active project, or if it's not, just general research, that's totally fine too.
I see a question from Donna, indoor air quality by different frame materials. So I don't know if you're asking specifically about like VO2 off gassing, but typically if we're talking about indoor air quality and how airtight the window is, then it won't really matter on which frame we're using as long as we have proper gasketing. What I mean by that is if we take our standard wood clad window, we still have 1, 2, 3 gaskets. So we can have a super airtight seal. If we look at our UPVC frame, we still have 1, 2, 3 gaskets. So we're retaining that air quality depending on your ERV or your air filtration system, but having it as airtight as possible. It won't really matter on the material as long as we have those gaskets. Now, if you're talking about VO2 off gassing, then yes, let's say the UPVC is probably not as healthy as a wood frame. Or aluminum frame. So we would have to take that into consideration if that is your question. Matt is asking about filler gas for high altitude climates. So it's not actually the gas that we change for high altitude. The last project in Steamboat Springs and Essex Park, what we did instead, so the gas remains the same. What we do is the way we build the IGUs. So there's 2 ways we can build the IGUs. One way is to have like a balloon system. Inside the IGU, we put a thin little piece of piping, you could say, with a balloon attached to the outside. And that basically what that does is once we start transporting the windows, if that IGU starts expanding, that extra gas gets put into that balloon. So once we climatize in your area, we snip off the little pipe, and you have your IGU locked in with the appropriate amount of gas for your location. The other thing that we use is somewhat like a bleeder valve. So it's the same thing, but without the balloon, the gas just escapes. It's a one directional valve. So enough gas will escape and then it pretty much shuts itself off. We do temper those units. That is very important, temper or laminate, because those units will expand. So tempered units, they can expand a lot more. They could actually bow out without breaking. So for high altitude, we make sure to have the proper valve or the balloon system, make sure that everything is tempered appropriately. And of course, we check your elevation exactly so that we can predetermine the amount of gas and the balloon's not expanding to 3 feet wide. Joey, we do not have a sales rep in the West. We fly out ourselves from Brooklyn if you ever need us to. And we sell pretty much coast to coast, but all from our Brooklyn office. Jonathan, loss of gas. So that's a good question. So now if we were to take the max amount, I've actually never done the calculation myself, so it's hard to say. I would have to double check that with the size of the unit. So larger glass panels will typically retain most of the performance versus a small glass panel, just because a smaller window, the overall U value is already typically lower than a larger one. So what I can do, the best thing that I could do is run a thermal modeling report to see what would happen after 7 years with, let's say, 21% gas loss and what that would mean for your performance. Holly, do you have an idea of how the price starts to increase as you create a low value U window, adding gaskets and such? Have you done a price comparison from a project where they use Marvin or something similar? Also a good question. Now, typically we haven't really, we do price against Marvin and Pella and things like that, but it's hard to say because they're never really equivalent. So we never priced a top of the line Marvin to a top of the line IKON window. But what we offer clients all the time is if you do have a set of drawings, blur out the prices, can't delete the prices. I don't really want to see them, but we will quote accordingly. And then you can do a price comparison yourself and see where we stand. OF different frame materials, not of different frame materials. Jake, when you change altitude, do you use a pressure relief to? Yes, so the pressure relief valve, that's what we would use for high altitude climates, as well as the tempered glass. Holly, I work at a residential firm and are trying to convince our clients to go with more passive options for windows. The price is usually a deciding factor. Yes, it is. It depends on the client and the aesthetic of the home. So you can get great performance windows out of a UPVC line, like so. And I consider this our workhorse because the price to performance ratio, it just beats everything else. I personally have these in my own house. That's also because I have kids and they would destroy everything else. So it depends what the client is looking for. If the client is looking for something very sleek and modern, like an aluminum window, they may be priced out of a hardcore passive house style aluminum window. However, we do have different options that I don't have with me right now that can still achieve very low U values that may be more in line with their price. And so what we like to do is we like to give clients different pricing options and see where they actually stand. So instead of just pricing the lowest U value window, we'll price 3 different windows. We'll show you thermal reports for all 3 lines, see where we are, because sometimes our entry level window is more than enough to get the comfort that the client wants, the look that they want, and it doesn't break the bank. For example, I do have our entry-level aluminum window. Now this is just the corner piece, so it has 2 panes of glass. We can put a triple pane in here, but this corner piece alone, our NFR CEU values for this is 0.17. So depending on the size of the window, the overall installed U value may be lower than that. And again, for most regions in America, that's more than enough. So we do play around with a few different window samples to see where the prices are and try to accommodate. At what temps does UPVC begin to deform, as with nearby wildfires? Terry, that is a good question. I don't know. I've never burned our UPVC windows, but that's something I could get back to you. If you just have an email address, I could send that information over. Burn temps. What kind of gasket materials do you use? Is that something that you have a sustainable option for? So we've switched all our gaskets over to an EPDM gasket only because of the longevity. We've noticed that we can use an EPDM gasket for a lot longer. You can use it for 20+ years and it's easy to replace. We used to use a more sustainable type of gasket, but it would have to be replaced more often. So the question boils down to, is using more material more sustainable or using less material for a longer time? We figured that using less material for a longer time would be more sustainable. That's why all our gaskets are EPDM. Doesn't matter which profile, they're all EPDM gaskets. Do you have a window product line that would be aesthetically accurate for historical windows? We do. I can actually move over and show you. And we have a double hung simulated window we created specifically for an architect here in Brooklyn a few years ago, and we have been using it for all our landmark passive house projects. Now, I apologize for the mess because we just moved into this space not long ago. However, if we look over here, here's our double hung simulated window the bottom will open and it will also tilt. And so for historical buildings, this is what we have been using. And we have some flexibility on changing the sizes of the mullions. But this is what LPC in Brooklyn has approved, and this is what we've been using.
Well,
Okay. I think I lost where I was. If you use a pressure release tube, how do you retain argon gas? So the pressure release valve, it's one directional. To simplify the design, if you could imagine that this is your valve, there's a ball inside. And so when the gas is being expelled, that ball lifts up, gas goes out. And then when the correct pressure is attained inside the IGU, the ball drops back down. We can crimp it afterwards. So once the windows are on site for, let's say, a week or two, and enough of that gas has left and everything is where it should be, we can crimp that valve or turn it off so that you don't have to worry about further gas coming out. Are any of your Windows Miami-Dade approved? Yes, we have one line that we have Miami-Dade approval for, that's in aluminum. We will be working on getting our wood clad line approved, as well as our UPVC. Also in our factories, we are allowed to fabricate Rainier's profiles. So Rainier's has Miami-Dade for their lift and slides, and I believe one window unit. So we're also allowed to fabricate the Rainier's profiles for Miami-Dade.
that was actually a question I also had for you, so thank you, Tula.
Okay, perfect. I'm looking at using your historical DHS windows on a project here in Philly. How have you handled the window screens for your build, or do you just deal with them? Also, great question. We are designing. Do I have the screen? I do have the screen. 1 second.
Well.
So I don't know if you may have saw the commercials or the advertisements on LinkedIn. Well, there's something called Flex Screen. It's a flexible screen. And what we do is on the outside of our double hung simulated, we create a channel that you don't see from the outside, and you just pop the screen into that channel, which will give you the insect screen on a double hung simulated window. And this screen we can also use on hidden sash aluminum windows. We could use it on our UPVC line, our wood clad line, which is great because it will hide within the frame. So typically, if anyone has seen European windows before, they have that ugly metal flange for their screen all the way on the outside. What this does is you hide it behind the cladding, you hide it behind the material. So all you see from the outside is the screen, no other materials shown.
Okay.
How do I get a certificate for attendance? Just send me your email address with your name and we'll send you a certificate.
We also will have, as long as when you joined for the webinar, as long as you entered your email, we have a record of your email. And then if you are an AIA member, I'll just send this link to the form one more time, just to make sure we have your AIA number. Go ahead and fill out that form. But yes, for anyone who's looking for credits for other reasons, yeah, just be sure to give us your email and we'll follow up with a certificate.
Options for bird-friendly glazing. We have two. So one of them is a etched glass. So you'll pretty much see dots, lines, some type of other laser etching. We do have one that's more non-visible to humans. It is a film that is applied. So the only downside of that is that it has to be a laminate IGU. The outer pane has to be a laminated piece because it's a foil that's inserted between the two panes. It is a little bit more expensive. However, it is an option. So those are the two options that we have. I just texted somebody to bring me a sample. If they come by in time, I'll show you. Certificates are needed even without AIA membership. Yes, certificates will be Yeah.
Certificates will be available for all attendees. So as long as you attended and signed in with your email, you will receive a link with a certificate option. Okay. Then I was
discuss. Mhm.
I was trying to get rid of some of these questions as we were going through them, but I know there's still a lot open. So yeah, just feel free to let me know if you didn't get to any of these. But I think we may do most of them.
For our non-visible bird glass from the front view, it looks just like glass. And I don't know if I could show it exactly, but there is a slight pattern in there. It's hard to see, so it's not like etched. And you can see it from close up, but it won't construct your view. And we get this from Ornilux, which is a German company. It comes in double as well as triple pane.
Cool.
Can you discuss more about how your product holds up in seismic areas? Another good question. There's definitely a test out there that I haven't really studied because we haven't really increased our sales in a, let's say, California environment. We have a job right now in Palo Alto with steel windows. So I will be looking into all our test reports for how our windows are affected in earthquake prone areas. If you use a pressure relief tube, how do you retain argon gas? Again, so once the amount of gas is expelled appropriate to your elevation, it automatically closes, but to make sure it's closed, you could crimp it even further, pretty much just locking that valve in place forever. What type of gasket material do you use? Do you have an option for a sustainable or non-off-gassing product? So we do use EPDM gaskets mainly because of the longevity. We've played around with a few different gasket material, but we've noticed that the EPDM will last longer, and that is what we use on all our products.
Right. Okay. I think a lot of these we've maybe gotten through already. Did we? I think we might have, but did we talk about this one from Matt about running into issues with shipping the glazing units filled up with argon?
Shipping them to high elevations?
Yeah.
So that usually won't be a problem, just because they do have the valves or the balloons. So they start releasing the gas once they start going up to a certain elevation. But if they're on the water, we're at sea level.
Great. Okay. And then I think we've talked about the indoor air quality of the frame materials. And Jacob, I saw your inquiry about the specs. I believe I typed something to you, but there are two options here. One is just go ahead and request during the poll some product literature or technical or installation info, and we can follow up with you over on Acelab. The second option is if you head over to IKON Windows page on Acelab, you can open any of the product pages, and if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, we host available downloads on Acelab as well. So you can check out the product pages on Acelab, see what downloads are available there. And if you're missing any information, you can request it directly through Acelab. Okay, cool. And it looks like we've gotten through the rest of these. So I'll do a final call for more questions. And if not, since we've got a little bit more time, then I will go ahead and show you how to find IKON's windows through one of Acelab's search tools, as well as be able to compare them to some other window options to be able to evaluate the performance data and all of that good stuff. I'm also going to put in one last request for the poll because I am going to end it in a moment. So answer the poll now if you would like to answer the poll. And I'm going to end it now. All right. So I'll re-release that for a moment at the end, just so anyone who didn't join can join. And again, feel free to continue adding questions into the Q&A as I go through our quick little demo. Okay, so at the beginning of today's webinar, I gave a quick little tour of Acelab where I showed you how to find IKON over here in the search bar. I will just repeat that for anyone who might have joined a bit late. So I'm starting off here from my personal dashboard. You can find that anytime by going to my library. If I want to head to IKON's page, you can just go ahead and type it into the search bar at the top. So I'll head over here and show you what I was talking about with those product pages. So again, you can connect with Adrian right here. You can also scroll down and explore IKON's products right from their page. So I'll open up one of these. So here we've got an overview of, product data and information. And then scrolling down, we have available downloads here. So you should be able to download some details right from Acelab's page. And if you're requesting any data, you can just put in a request for that right through our site. It'll ask you to nest this under a project. So if you don't have an active project, you can create one from this page really quickly and just call it test or general research or something like that. And then I'll show you quickly while we're here, the other way that you can find IKON's windows through Acelab. So if you're doing more general research and you don't know exactly the product you're looking for, all of our searchable product categories are located here in this dark blue bar at the top. So I'll click over to Windows, go ahead and get started. So this is our product advisor. It's basically like a guided search flow where we use visual descriptions as well as some included information here. Anytime you see a little question mark, you can hover over to get a little bit more information about that filter. I will just set Colorado. So you add in a few basic project details. Here you can select frame materials. You can also skip this if you're looking for, more general information. And again, we have these little handy icons, which will give you some more information about how this might affect price range as well as performance. We also ask you for your required energy performance. So if you're a numbers person, we've got our U factors here. But if you're just kind of going for a more general range, you can select that. And then any special requirements. So impact ratings, different certifications, custom, options. You can select any of that here as well. Something I do like to mention is I've noticed that sometimes people love to select as many filters as possible. So one thing I just like to mention is that you can see here at the bottom how many products are available. So as you kind of go through this flow, you can see, okay, I'm starting to narrow down my products a bit. And if you'd like more options, you can choose less filters. If you're really looking for a specific option, choose as many filters as you'd like. All right, so scrolling down here, we've got a results page. And you don't have to go through that whole search flow again. If you'd like to change up your options here, you can just go ahead and do that. So I can select a frame material, and that'll change up the results that I see. There's a few different ways that you can view these results. So as I'm scrolling down now, it's kind of in a list view. I've got some more information about the manufacturers, where they ship, and a direct connection to them as well. And then I can also scroll through and see all of the available products from their line that fit my search. You can also pop this into grid view. So if you'd like to see just all of the products at once in a more visual way, you can. And then here I'll show you how to start saving IKON windows as well as comparing IKON windows to some other window manufacturers. So if you hover over a product card, you can save this to a project, or you can save it without a project. You can also add a new project right from this page. So pretty flexible depending on where you're at in your research journey. And then you can also on the left here, click this little compare tool. So that will add it to a comparison table at this bottom section of the site. I'm going to go ahead and do that with a few IKON windows, and I'll do it with a few other windows as well. Let's throw a Fleetwood and all weather in here. So you can do up to 4 and then click compare. And this will give you an overview of all of the data that we have available. So apples to apples, you can really quickly see an overview of the data we have available, a direct connection to a product rep, dimensions, composition, finished materials, grid profiles. And then at the end, we also will host the performance data that we have available. And anytime you're missing information, you can request it directly from this page. We'll also list certifications, glazing tables, and at the bottom, again, downloads. All right. So that's kind of a quick overview of how our search tools work. And then I'll just quickly show you where you can find all of that information that I've just saved. Actually, I'll go back to my search real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and save this search. So if I get to the stage where I haven't quite selected a product, I can just save this search either to a project or without a project, depending on what type of research I'm doing. And then everything that I'm saving lives over here in my library. So if I hop back to my dashboard, I can see that most recent search right here, pick up where I left off really easily. I can also see the products that I've saved. So I've got my IKON windows saved here, an overview of my projects, as well as any conversations. So over here, you can see I requested a price quote earlier. I can navigate back to this really easily, as well as see an overview of project details here. And those are just tests, which is why Adrian isn't answering me. And then to jump over to your project portal. So as I had mentioned, there's a few moments where you can upload a project if your research is project specific. So I can jump over here to my project portal, see an overview of the project that I have. Any products that I've saved will live right here. So that IKON Windows product that I just saved is available for me right here. And I can also use that comparison tool right from this page as well. So once you've saved your products, if you'd like to go back and continue comparing them to see an overview of the data, you can do that right from your product library. Okay. That pretty much covers my tour, but one thing I'll mention, since we are here in our webinar and a few people have asked for the slides. So if you scroll to the bottom, we host some of our other resources and educational content down here. So we will be uploading a recording of this webinar to Acelab's page. So if you head over to the articles tab, this is where we upload all of our past recordings of webinars. So you can jump in here and watch some of our older webinars, and we'll also have a recording of this event uploaded to this page over the next few days, and you'll receive an email about that with a link. Okay. And that pretty much covers my quick tour of Acelab. If anyone has any questions, you can feel free to shoot me an email. I'll type it into the chat now so everyone has it. And the one other thing I'll mention while I'm here is that we've got one more webinar coming up next week. So if you would like to register for that, I'll jump the link into the chat as well. All right, so that second message is a link to register for next week's webinar for anyone who might be interested. And I will give one last call for any questions for Adrian today, any questions for me as well, you can feel free to enter. And if not, then we will go ahead and let everyone go a few minutes early. See from Shannon, very nice product, IKON and Acelab tour. Thank you. Thank you, Shannon. And thank you everyone who attended today. We really appreciate it. And we hope you have a good rest of your Thursday. If anyone else is in the Denver area and experiencing this rain that I'm experiencing also, please stay safe and dry and hope this storm passes soon. Okay. Looks like all the questions are just thank yous. So with that, I think we can let everyone go a few minutes early. Adrian, thank you so much for today's presentation and for working through all of those questions. It's always great to see so many people, asking questions and engaging. So thank you to all of our participants as well. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your Thursday. All right. Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.